Interviewer. What do you think about what will happen once the situation in Ukraine stabilizes? Montyan. Hold on. What makes you think it would ever stabilize? Countries like Somalia or Haiti have been falling apart for decades. Nobody needs to fix Ukraine. Ukrainians themselves have simply become resources for more successful nations. Over 1 million have already run away to Poland. How many ran away to Russia? Nobody knows. Everybody is fleeing this place because they have no hope for the future. As for why I'm staying, I'm a sociologist, I'm a lawyer, I'm observing the collapse of law and society around here and recording my observations. Interviewer. Well, if we suppose that the situation eventually gets stabilized somehow. Montyan. Okay, the only scenario I can imagine is if aliens arrive from Mars and magically fix this place. Right now, I see no forces that are trying to fix the situation. Moreover, anybody with any sort of influence is trying to steal as much as they can because they have no hope for fixing this place. So the only thing they can do is grab as much as they can and run away. You know, if you're seeing a dying horse and a bunch of jackals around it, they're obviously not trying to heal it. They are trying to grab a bite before the horse dies and another packs of neighboring jackals pull it apart. What about opposition parties? The opposition parties are business ventures just like the ruling parties. They are also trying to get in power and steal. They have been in this business for decades and they know what they're doing very well. What can we talk about if one of these guys told me that despite his showing the opposition politicians, he cannot show me on TV because they would take away his broadcasting license? What does this imply? Interviewer. What can you comment about the talking of prosecution for army officers that were shelling peaceful cities during the war? Montyan. The only way I can imagine anything like that ever happening is if a new government is established, probably by an outside player, and ordered to prosecute war criminals. Right now, our president is still talking this bullshit about our glorious army that has protected Europe from an invasion. Turchinov, who was before him and who was still the Secretary of Defense, is still spewing some insanity and basically makes zero sense and only triggers vomiting reflex. So right now nobody's interested in it. Interviewer. Right now, some politicians, even those that are not in the opposition bloc, are talking about reconciliation with Russia. Even the president has said that the breakup with Russia has cost us 15 billion and our trade has collapsed. Montyan. Well, you know, there's this joke about a guy who murdered his mom and dad, and then in court, he's asking court to take pity on a poor orphan. So, you know, our president is doing great. He has a factory in Russia. It's producing candy en masse, and overall it's doing pretty good. Occasionally it has arguments, but it's still running, still making a lot of money. So, of course, yes, that stuff is obvious. Everybody knew that nobody except Russia needs the production of our factories. Of course, only complete idiots, brainwashed by Soros or Western media, etc., could believe that Europe wants stuff produced in Ukraine. Only complete retards that didn't see what happened in Bulgaria, in Hungary, in Romania, in Greece, could not understand what this will lead to. They should just talk to people from those countries and they would understand what's happening. You just need to look at the Baltics as well. Like Latvia, there's nothing there. There's only a bit of Riga that's alive, and that's it. Everything else is dead. Kids, as soon as they graduate high school, immediately leave to EU, whole high school classes. The rest of Baltic states are not much better. So, I don't know what those idiots wanted. I don't know the limits of their stupidity. As far as, Western Ukraine, okay, those peasant idiots, their only desire is to fix toilets in Poland. Okay, I get that part. Okay, they never dreamed of anything else. But I'm surprised by Central Ukraine. But, the propaganda machine has worked really well and has brainwashed everyone apparently. Interviewer. So, if the Ukrainian elites are now talking about reconciliation, on the other hand, why did they refuse to receive the new Russian ambassador? Montyan. Well, that is simply PR. They need to tell the aforementioned retards that they are fighting Moscow, that they are beating the Muscovites, that they're defending the country from aggression, all that stuff. Otherwise, the idiots start suspecting something. They're already suspecting after they've been served with electricity bills that are twice the previous size. Now they need to be distracted. Interviewer. What about the new American ambassador? Montyan. What about her? She's pretty much the same as Jeffrey Payette, except I assume she stole less and now possibly needs more from the $5 billion that Americans spent here. Interviewer. Can you comment on the recent scandal with a hugely expensive apartment that Zalishuk and Leshchenko have bought in the center of Kiev? Montyan. Those people are so stupid, so unimaginative, that they cannot even make up a convincing lie as to how they got this apartment. And this shows what kind of idiots are Americans recruiting for their mass media specialists. The Swedish guy, by the way, is keeping it quiet, even though people have been asking him for several days, why did you give them so much money and where did you get the money from? He's not answering so far, but of course, the patriots are all suffering. They are going, oh my god, those guys betrayed us, yada yada. Leshchenko was a real saint for them. They also need to look into God's code because they'll figure out much more about the Democratic Alliance. As for why this is such a big deal, it's because Leshchenko was playing this completely clean, completely non-profit, that he's fighting corruption, that he's altruistic like Mother Teresa. He was wearing these t-shirts that said fuck corruption and all that, and now suddenly turns out that they are part of this corruption and at the center of it. And that's why the people are all pissed off, because of course when a known government official or an old-time politician is part of corruption, nobody cares. But when the new activists that rose on the platform of living honestly and fighting corruption turn out to be the same, that's when even the dumbest guys start asking questions and suspecting something. Even Ponomaryov's audience, Oleg Ponomaryov in Canada, his PR project is completely insane, and his audience are completely retarded because it can be read for humorous purposes, but even his audience is asking questions now. So that's a big sign. Interviewer. The next big story that started after Leshenko's apartment is the skit of 95 of the humorous show 95 Kvartal. Montyan. That skit was aired some time ago, and it would have gone unnoticed if it wasn't published widely and purposely everywhere. And I'm sure that this skit was personally approved by Kolomoisky, who owns the TV channel, and it was done by him to attack our alcoholic president. And as for why the idiots were shown this video and why it was plastered all over the internet, I don't know. But they started quarreling over it, it was a big deal, and now it's a whole big scandal. As for Zelensky himself, who made the skit, well, don't do anything to him, he's just a clown. That's his job, and he works for his owner just the same as everywhere, so don't attack the prostitutes, Wait, as far as making fun of Ukraine, he wasn't making fun of Ukraine. Ukraine isn't a bunch of assholes that were pushed by Americans to the top, okay? Ukraine isn't a bunch of thieves. Ukraine isn't begging everybody for money. It's these guys who are doing it. I'm part of Ukraine. I don't want to go to Europe. I can go there and visit, but I don't want to be part of it because I know they don't need me. All those idiots, some of them want to go to Europe, some of them want to go to Russia. Let them pack up their suitcases and leave. Leave us who want to live in Ukraine alone. Interviewer. Can you comment on the murder or assassination of Pavel Sheremet? It was strangely professional. Montyan. I don't know who wanted to murder him. But what I've heard from police officers that I know is that the explosive device was planted inside the car. So it's a question for Pritula, the editor of Ukrainian Pravda, or her friend Leshenko, aforementioned activist who was implicated in corruption. So maybe somebody wanted to kill Pritula, maybe somebody wanted to kill Leshenko, maybe they wanted to kill Sheremet. So it's a very strange and hard to investigate case, and I seriously doubt that it would be solved. Yeah, sure, FBI guys came. So what are they gonna find out? What type of bomb was it? Where was it planted? Okay, they found out it was a bomb, which was inside the car. How can they figure out who did it and why? How do they know who has a problem with who around here? Even if the fact that Pritula gave Leshenko a ton of money was only found out when he, like a complete idiot, put the expensive apartment in his own name. How do we know who else Pritula gave money to? How do we know who else Pritula owed money to? How do we know who Sheremet was pissed off at, or who was pissed off at him? Nobody knows. Who knows those grant guys? Maybe they couldn't share some grant or something. And as far as who did it, there's plenty of explosives experts after the war. They have no money, they have no jobs, so finding a guy who can make a bomb today it's trivial. Interviewer. What about the burning of the Inter TV channel offices? Was it a terror against mass media or something else? Montyan. I don't know if Levachkin and Fintrash, the oligarchs who own the Inter TV channel, organized the burning. But I know that if they didn't want the TV channel to be burned, they could have prevented it easily. They could have hired 20, 30 thugs. We have plenty very good fighters around here, and they would have thrown those extremists, beaten them up, and prevented this. But if Levachkin and Firtash didn't provide hired muscle, then they wanted the TV channel to be burned. Maybe they wanted some more sacrificial lambs. Maybe they wanted some journalists to burn alive or get beat up or whatever. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Everybody survived. Okay, I don't care for those prostitute journalists, but they're people after all. They do not deserve being burned alive. But of course their masters don't care, so... As for why Firtash or Levachkin wanted their channel burned, I don't know. But if they wanted to prevent it, they could have easily done so. Interviewer. What about the strange police response? Why did the people who were prosecuted for it were all let go really quickly? Montyan. What do you mean? The guys who burned the TV channel are the people of the police minister Avakov, Kiva and Korch. Would they be arresting themselves? Who cares? As for why didn't they detain them longer? Why keep them in jail? Who else would follow Avakov's orders to burn something else down if he keeps detaining people who do it? Interviewer. What about the crime levels in the Kiev area? Montyan. Oh, about the crime, of course I know. I'm a criminal lawyer by profession. You remember, right? So, my clients call me, tell me about their lives, etc. So, you know, their lives are okay. They are no longer afraid of police, but they are quite afraid of the victims. They are not afraid of being arrested, but they are afraid of going to rob or murder somebody and getting killed by their victims. Because there's tons of weapons in the country, and, you know, people get shot, people get axed to death when they try to break in. But the new police, they don't really care. So the only thing that they're afraid of is the victims resisting and killing them. Interviewer. So you're saying that they were afraid of the old police more? Montyan. Of course. The old police was working a little bit, okay? I was trying to explain to our democratic retards that the main, the keystone of any investigation are the beat cops. The beat cops that might be selling drugs, might be sleeping with prostitutes, might be showing up drunk, but they know everybody locally. They know what's happening in the area. But all of these guys have been fired, so, of course, the chances of solving any crime are near zero, because nobody is there to solve it. Of course, my clients are no longer afraid of police whatsoever. The only thing that they're afraid of is victims resisting them. That's it. As far as the levels of crime, yeah, of course, it increased several times, and in most cases, people don't even go to the police because it's completely useless. Of course, yeah, people tell me things like, okay, I've been robbed, so, like, should I go talk to the police and waste time? Why? The new guys are only good at taking selfies and taking grannies across the road and all that stuff. Of course, if something really valuable was stolen or taken, they could talk to local gangsters and pay them money to get it back. But that's about it. Talking to the police is pretty useless. Plus, there's all those funny news about the new cops, where they beat up people, they murder people, they crashed most of their new cars shipped from Japan, all that. Well, you know, they were taken off the street, they were not trained. What do you want from the new police? Interviewer. Can you explain the conflict between the Prosecutor's General Office and the National Anti-Corruption Bureau? And the involvement of the police ministry in all of that. Montyan. Money, and only money, is the source of all conflicts between our law enforcement agencies. because there are no longer people that have money that can easily be arrested and extorted. So that's why they are competing over clients. That's why they are all competing over who gets to keep the people who are arrested, who gets to try whom, who gets to prosecute certain cases. That is the source of all conflict. It's all haggling over who gets more clients that can be extorted. They are not interested in anything else, including clients without money. To believe that they are fighting for the rule of law or something is only the worst Euro retards can even consider this. Interviewer. But there's an opinion that the National Anti-Corruption Bureau is directly controlled from the United States. Montyan. Of course, all of them are controlled from the United States. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau, the Prosecutor General's Office, the Special Prosecutor for Corruption, all of them are controlled. So what? Americans are people too. All of them want money. Why do you think that their personnel sent to Ukraine is any different from the locals? Who would be sent to this third world shithole? Idiots who are not led anywhere near anything valuable. Look at Pyatt and all those people, Newland, their State Department spokesman. That's painful to look at. Interviewer. What about the head of President's administration, Loshkin, resigning? Montyan. A smart rat that has fled the sinking ship ahead of time. Same deal as Dima Gordon, who has suddenly changed course and suddenly realized that it's because of the glorious revolution that we have 10,000 dead civilians and complete destruction of the economy. So everybody who has a little bit of brain and is not completely blinded by greed keeps fleeing the country to somewhere where they will not be prosecuted. Apart from the head of President's administration, I know a number of guys mid-level working on government procurement who have started leaving, who are buying real estate in Europe or even in America and closing up shop and going abroad. And yes, that guy who has taken a picture with a policeman in Panama, and now they're paying now they're paying attention to him. But if he was sitting quietly, nobody would care. Yeah, it's probably just because of the photo, because they said he was arrested and he really wasn't. So if he just kept quiet, didn't do anything, would be fine. As far as the signs of the Titanic sinking, yeah, of course, it's already been hit by the iceberg, and now they're just waiting for all the internal space to get filled up with water. But it turns out that we have a little bit of space still left. There's still a lot of inertia, so it's sinking a little bit slower than some anticipated. Interviewer. Last question. Do you think that a third revolution or Maidan is still possible, considering the fall of living standards and all that? Montyan. Who would pay for it, and for what reason? You could start a coup, but to finish it, you have to have support from the world police. So, until the American elections are done, and until we know who is the next president, everybody will be sitting relatively quietly, making some PR stunts, but not doing anything serious. Interviewer. But there's a serious reason for social protests because of the hugely increased utility bills. Montyan. All of these social protests are nothing until somebody pays for all the tents, for all the food, for the sound equipment, for the organizers. Without that, nothing will happen. No, Mustafa Nayyem and all the other assholes were the organizers of the revolution. They took everybody to the square, they organized them, they formed them into a structure that could attack law enforcement. Who would do it now? It costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of people that you need to organize it. Who would do it now? What's the point? To seize power? They're already in power. Interviewer, do you think they are so talented that they could organize a crowd and organize a revolution? Montyan, what do you mean they organized the revolution? It was organized by the US State Department and their specialists. They have done it in tons of other countries at the same time. They have later tried to do it in Armenia and in Kazakhstan, which we have also seen. But this time it didn't work because they looked at Ukraine, they looked what happened here, and they said, we don't want the same thing. So, in some ways, we really became a shield protecting the post-Soviet space from those color revolutions organized by the Americans. We sacrificed ourselves so that Russia could see what happens if you come out and start supporting democratic opposition and trying to overthrow government. Interviewer, and about your statements that you've made to the border guards that detained you illegally, that Russia would soon come and take over. Was that emotional? Do you really think so? Montyan, that was simple logic. Nobody is interested in helping us or doing anything about Ukraine. This loan for 1 billion that we got from IMF, that got all the patriots excited that our alcoholic president was falling head over heels for, is nothing compared to 38 billion that Americans gave to Israel, that isn't a loan, but simply essentially a gift for a small country with 7 million population, as opposed to small change that our 40 million country got, that is only intended to keep Ukraine afloat for the next couple months until the American elections. Which, by the way, the elections themselves are very interesting because Clinton, that old grandma, is already stumbling in the street and fainting. Maybe they could replace Clinton with Monica Lewinsky. She has replaced Clinton before. Maybe she can replace her in the White House too. I think it's a great idea. Interviewer, do you think the attitude and the strategy of United States would change after the elections? Montyan, if the Republican, Trump, wins, then anything is possible. If he doesn't get assassinated or something else doesn't happen, I think he's leading in the polls now, then we'll see. Maybe he'll investigate how much money was stolen in this operation. The scale of it is pretty enormous. If this Swedish guy, one of the boyfriends of Zelishuk, managed to lend so much money to Leshchenko, then I think probably the whole 5 billion that was given for the revolution was mostly stolen, and our guys only got the tail end of it. Interviewer, so this year we have US elections. Next year there will be European elections. So what do you think will happen there? Montyan, I seriously hope that all those pieces of shit that were promoting our so-called revolution of dignity would get kicked out, finally, because you can't destroy a country of 40 million people and get away with it. I hope karma catches back to them. Interviewer, do you think the European attitude to Ukraine would change? Montyan, Europe will keep exploiting us just like they have exploited us before. The expectations of them being some sort of Santas or nice wizards that would come and fix all of our problems, that's insane. They had zoos with people fairly recently, and now they're teaching us about human rights and all that bullshit. Yeah, you know, the zoos. When in the 50s, and there's a famous 1958 photo where Belgian citizens are feeding a little black kid with bananas in a zoo. And now these people are telling us how we should live, where they still have people alive that were going to zoos to look at people. And I'm not even mentioning America and their history of human rights. And now they're telling us about tolerance and all that bullshit. I liked how the Chinese guys made fun of Obama. They didn't they didn't spread the red carpet for him. They didn't put up a ramp to his plane, and they said that this is our country, our airport. I think they have rehearsed it very well, and I think he fully deserved it, because in March 1914, the Xinhua news agency, the official news agency of the Communist Party of China, has published an editorial or whatever. The point is, they said that the Americans have destroyed Ukraine, have started a civil war there, and cannot fix it because they're financially and morally bankrupt, and because they're assholes who go destroy other countries and do not pay for it. And this is basically what the Chinese said, and of course it wasn't published here in Ukraine, but we read Chinese newspapers, so we know what they think. Interviewer: why do you think the Chinese made such a sharp announcement and interfered in this Ukrainian issue? Montyan: the Chinese did not get involved in the Ukrainian issue or make a sharp announcement. They have simply declared obvious facts that are known to every sane human being. Ukraine isn't the first country this happened in. Look at Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yugoslavia, all that. We were living by ourselves with our government. It might have been bad, might have been good, might have been corrupt, but it was legitimate. And they gave us a revolution and replaced our household thieves with war criminals and insane murderers. Interviewer: can you comment on the visit of the foreign ministers of France and Germany and the connected IMF loan? Montyan: as far as the IMF loan, I think it's simply intended to keep the government on life support until the elections in America, so that the Prime Minister and the President do not get murdered by the angry populace until that happens. As far as the visit of the foreign ministers, they have simply, yet again, tried to convince those war criminals and thieves to implement the ceasefire that they have agreed to 2 years ago. Of course, those guys have no desire to implement the Minsk process. Just, I think yesterday, a 19-year-old woman was killed in Donetsk. A Russian journalist was wounded a few days ago. Of course, our government-controlled media tell us that the damn terrorists keep attacking Ukrainian territory, yada yada, but there are no pictures of any schools or houses or anything destroyed in the government-held territory. But In DLPR, there's daily pictures of schools getting shelled, of houses getting shelled, of various essential infrastructure facilities getting destroyed. So our government is composed of war criminals that have no desire to implement the ceasefire, because if they do, that means them getting thrown out of power and possibly getting killed. Do you think they didn't know what they're doing when they started the war? Do you think the Americans didn't know what they were doing when they started this? They knew who they were supporting. If they didn't, they're complete retards. The only thing that surprised me in this whole thing is the complete lack of sovereignty of the European governments. Turns out they completely follow the United States. I thought they can make at least some of their own decisions, but turns out they do not. Interviewer. But after all, the European rhetoric is getting more and more open. An OSCE observer recently declared that there are no Russian troops in the Donbass. Montyan. The OSCE observer that declared that there are no Russian troops in the LPR is freaking Captain Obvious. If Russian army really was in the Donbass, then with the current technologies where you can from space see the color of panties of a woman in a house, of course, if the Russian army was there, it would easily be spotted. Of course, OSCE observers have finally noticed the obvious. Everybody makes fun of them in the Donbass, and everybody hates them. They get good money for what they do, they drink in the best bars, they arrange for the shellings to happen when they are not there, and they're basically just white men going to a third world country to earn money. I can't express the hate that the locals feel for them over there, because they are lying, crooked bastards. And suddenly, one of them says, there are no Russian troops there. How unexpected. And by the way, our lawyer Katsaba spent 1.5 years in jail for saying the same thing on YouTube. Montyan, what do you mean, like, how will this get resolved? Everybody has already made peace with the fact that this place is going to be something in between Somalia and Haiti. The only thing that we now know is that it won't collapse as quickly as some thought. What can be done now? Who will pay for fixing it? You know, okay, they finally acknowledged that there were no chemical weapons in Iraq. They have finally acknowledged that there was no reason to bomb Gaddafi's government and make Libya a failed state. They have finally acknowledged that Assad wasn't shooting peaceful protesters. So, are they fixing any of the things they've done? Same thing here. Oh, we had a tyrannical regime, yada yada. Now we have a regime that's 10 times worse, and they pretending they didn't know who they're bringing to power. Of course they knew. They did it in completely calculated. And this is exactly what they wanted, and they wanted to make money on destroying our country, which is what they did. Interviewer. The trial of the Tornado paramilitary fighters. What does it mean? Does it mean that they are finally trying to establish law and order? Montyan. The only reason they are trying Tornado is because they could no longer conceal their crimes. And of course, Boyko has also published the pictures of their commander with stuff stuck up his anus and their communications about their sexual perversions and all that. But the point is that these guys were initially hired by Avakov, who is currently the police minister, to attack people in East Ukraine and to start the war. You know, normal people do not normally grab weapons and go to war. The only reason to make them fight is if guys like that Tornado go and steal food from their children, like our own official, Moskal, the current governor of Lugansk Oblast, has explained some time ago when talking about Tornado's crimes. Yes, of course. The main point of it is to start the war. The people there were completely reasonable. They didn't want to fight. The war was started by the nationalists, regardless of what their government-controlled media are telling us. And those gangs, like Tornado, were going there and pissing off the local population. No, I'm not talking about army units, mostly. Army was a little bit better. Most people there were drafted off the street, but the terrorist battalions, those were serious. The idiot patriots, so to speak, were killed first, and the only ones left were the marauders, gangsters, and sexual deviants, because normal people understood that there are no Russian troops that they are fighting, and they understood what the whole business is about.